Okay. We'd like to welcome you to the Historic Preservation Committee meeting. Today, September 23rd, 2020. Pursuant to Section 3 of the Declaration of Emergency Directive 006, there will be no in-person attendance at this meeting. Items listed on the agenda may be taken out of order. 2 or more agenda items for consideration may be combined, and any item on the agenda may be removed or related discussion may be delayed at any time. At this time, we'll call the meeting to order. Okay, is there any public comment? Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. Each person has up to 5 minutes to speak on a specific agenda item. Public comment, whether on agenda item or general public comment, is limited to up to 5 minutes per person. Members of the public may participate by calling 702-293-2910. And we'll wait here a few minutes for public comment. Okay, thank you. We have about 2 more minutes for public comment. Okay, then we'll move on to our first item on the agenda, which is election of officers. And so at this time, we have to elect a chairman and a vice chairman.
Can I ask a question? Is it okay to do that if we don't have a full membership here, even though we hired 2 new people?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm wondering if we should wait till all 5 are here before we do that, or do we have to?
Well, I mean, if you think there's an intent to nominate somebody who's never served on the committee before to chair or vice chair, that'd be the only reason I could think of why you might want to postpone.
I think I'm just wondering if procedurally, if it makes sense to have the whole group here. And I don't know what that other person, Mary Ann, the new member, if she has an opinion about who's here, or,
That's the committee's choice. I mean, it would normally be expected that probably who you choose are the people who've already served on the committee with experience, so that extra vote may or may not matter, but it's entirely up to the committee.
Oh, okay, so what is your will here? Would you like to do it tonight?
well, what do you think? I would rather do it next month, but
Okay, anybody else have
My
any other
opinion.
opinion?
And so we just couldn't do it tonight. I mean, my thoughts on it is the two people with the most seniority on the board, which should be those two people, and then we can decide which one of those two would be the chair and vice chair. I mean, that'd be the easiest way of doing it. I mean, you guys been here a while, you know what you're doing. I mean, that would be appropriate for those people to be the ones to chair and co-chair. I mean, it just go on a basic seniority basis even. That's just,
Madam Vice Chair, the only other consideration is while there's certainly a good intent in wanting all 5 members to vote, you don't know what might happen next month. One of you may be absent due to illness or a family emergency, and then you'd be still not having all 5 members here. So at some point, you know, business has to go forward.
Okay, I think we'll just go ahead and get it done. Okay, so any nominations then for chairman?
I nominate Linda to be chair.
Okay, do we have to make that in motion form?
No, it could just be nominations, and I don't believe, can't recall if a nomination requires a second. I don't believe it does.
nominations don't require a second.
Thank you.
Okay,
It sounds
okay.
like
So,
Mr. Fayette knows.
If you want to, I'd like to nominate Blair for the co-chair, or whichever the title is for the second position.
Well, maybe it would probably be appropriate to have nominations for chair, and then close those nominations, and then have nominations for vice chair,
Okay,
and not mix the two.
okay, very good, thank you.
So you have one current nomination for chair, and I think
Right.
you would ask, are there any other nominations for chair?
Okay, are there any other nominations from the floor for chair?
I would like to nominate Blair Davenport for the chair. And of course, Linda, I would be happy to support you continuing serving as co-chair.
Okay.
I'm
Okay, so,
kind of look forward to this day, and I think with Blair's knowledge and expertise, I think at this time I think it would be prudent to have Blair as the chair.
okay, so we have 2 nominations for chair, so should we go with voting for the first one?
Motion to close the nominations.
Okay, motion to close the nominations.
Do you have a second, or a first
Okay.
and a second?
Okay, we need a motion to close the nomination.
So move.
Second.
Okay, all right, then,
You need to vote
now we vote on,
the closing of the nomination.
now, okay, we'll close the nominations. Yeah, it is.
All in favor, say aye.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. So the first one that was nominated, we'll vote on. So if you would like Linda Graham to serve as chair, please vote now.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
I'm sorry, I lost track. Were there 3 ayes?
4.
All 4, okay.
Okay. Okay, I guess that settles it then. Okay. Okay, so Linda Graham will serve as chair. Now we need to vote on our vice chair. And Blair has been nominated to serve as vice chair. Are there any other nominees. Okay,
Motion to close the nominations.
we'll close the nominations for vice chair. And whoever wants Blair to be vice chair can vote now.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
We need to first motion to close and then a second.
Okay.
And then you vote. And
Okay.
then you do the vote for the position.
I'll make the motion to close nominations for vice chair.
And then we need a second.
Second.
Okay. Okay.
And a vote.
Excuse me?
All those in favor?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now we can vote for vice chair.
And because there's only one nomination, it's by acclamation.
Okay, so by virtue of just one nomination, then our vice chair then is Blair Davenport. Okay, very good. Congratulations. All right, then we'll move on. All right, our second item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the August 26th regular meeting. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
I vote to approve the minutes.
Okay,
Second.
all right, hearing none, then we have a motion to approve and a second, and the minutes will then be placed on file.
You have to have a vote.
Oh, okay, all right.
Just
This
say
is
all
different
those in
than a regular
favor.
meeting. Okay,
Aye.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, then now the minutes can be placed on file. Okay, we'll move on to our third action item. Review and recommendation on proposed additions at 307 Utah Street relative to the adopted exterior design guidelines for that area. Okay, we can open up for discussion at this point.
Madam Chairman, just as a brief summary, you've got plans that have been provided to you for various additions to this home on Utah Street, and the staff report lists the items that don't comply with the guidelines for this. And at the end of the report, it also notes that one small part of the front addition will need a setback variance from the Planning Commission. And although I suspect the commission's primary comments will be regarding whether or not there should be an addition or the architectural standards of it, if you have any opinion about the closer setback to that short sub-street, I'm sure the Planning Commission would appreciate the committee's comments.
Okay, this time, are there any comments from the committee about the changes that will have to be approved by the Planning Commission, or any other comments?
So I do have some questions. Does this project require any permission from neighbors?
No, construction on a single-family home doesn't require permission from neighbors ever.
Oh, okay.
Right, yeah, no.
wasn't sure.
Once they apply for a variance, surrounding property owners will be notified of the public hearing so that they can make comments during the public hearing or provide comments in advance or after, either before the meeting or during the meeting. But that's the point of a public hearing and noticing, is to make the neighbors aware so that they can provide input. The neighbors don't have a vote.
But, I'm sorry, public can make comments to the variance.
Yes.
Okay. So speaking of the variance, why is there a difference between, 20 feet versus 15 feet?
Basically, with the zoning code, there are setbacks for zoning districts, and they're based on when the neighborhood was created. So what we found is that setbacks have changed over the decades, and so the normal premise for new construction is that it has to follow current codes, but the code was amended some years back so that the setbacks established are based on when that neighborhood was established. And in this zone, for these oldest lots pre-1964, the front setback, which is defined as the code as the shortest of the property lines abutting a street is always 20 feet. But in this zone, for these age homes, 15 feet was the established side street setback going back those decades. And there are many homes in the historic district on corner lots that are closer to the side street than the front street. So the 15-foot setbacks shown to Park Street and Utah Street are allowed. And then likewise, the rear setback, which is that right property line, is also allowed at 15 feet. It's only the part towards the left property line there, towards that stub street where it shows 20, and then the actual setback is only 15. That triangular sliver is what encroaches into the required front setback.
Sorry, I was confused. I'm talking about the 15 feet versus the 20 feet. So the 15 feet only applies to front, and then it's more than that for side or rear, or?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the question.
I thought you just said that the front variance is 20 feet, but here it shows 15.
The required front setback is 20 feet, and as you see, they want that sliver to be only 15 feet from that front property line instead of 20.
Oh, I'm not seeing where the 20-foot is on the,
If you look on the left side of the drawing towards that short stub street on the left, and then you see where he's got 20 feet and that it goes into where the new addition is?
right?
And that the actual setback proposed is only 15? And you see that 20-foot line?
I see the 20, and then I
Right.
see 15 right in the front.
Right, and that's because the house is encroaching into that 20-foot setback. Where that 20-foot line is where the code requires the setback to be. Everything should be behind that 20-foot line. They want that triangle going closer than 20 feet to that property line, which will require a variance.
That's why it has to go to the planning commission?
Correct.
Okay. I see
So
that.
the dotted line, is that the variance boundary?
No, the dotted lines are showing you the required setbacks. Now, the existing garage is existing.
Right.
So it encroaches, we can't do anything about existing construction. The patio covers, like the one to the Park Street, the staff report notes unenclosed patio covers can already go closer to property lines, so that's not the issue. But it's that new addition on the front of the home that you can see goes closer than 20 feet to that, for the sake, we'll call it left property line. That's what will require the variance for that little triangular area that encroaches within that 20-foot setback.
I'm sorry, I'm still confused.
I think I know what's the misunderstanding. So on Utah Street, the required setback is 15 feet. It's not considered the front. It's the side is the shortest front that you have, and
Correct.
that's the only one that needs to be 20.
Correct, because this is a lot that has street frontages on 3 sides. The code says that the shortest street frontage is the front property line. So the 20-foot setback is only required from that left property line to that little unnamed stub street to the left. The other 15-foot setbacks shown are all correct, and everything else complies because, again, the existing garage is existing, the patio covers are allowed to encroach. It's only the enclosed bedroom addition at the front of the home which will need a variance.
It's just bizarre.
Welcome to my world.
It's just because the 20-foot isn't technically the front of the property.
Correct. The code defines the shortest street as the front property line. And there are many corner lots around the city where the house doesn't face the front street per code.
Sure.
Can I ask a question?
do.
Looking at this plan here, I notice there's a couple of other areas of that house existing that are well into the setback. Were those, in time past, I'm sure there's been a while, Were those, did those areas receive variances before, or that's just something that somebody built and?
The original house goes back to the federal days, that's why it's in the historic district.
Okay, so I'm just
Yeah.
trying to, find out if that was something that they built back then and just, that's original, that they exceeded into the setback?
Actually, that's a valid question. I believe what the Northwind report states is that they said the garage came after the house. I don't recall if they mentioned what year it came afterwards, but we don't have records that go back that far. Or rather, like I said, I didn't check to see what year the garage was built. It was either built during the federal days or so long ago that it's not an issue now.
Okay, no, I was just curious if it was just something that they built and without any permits or whatever, or if they already applied for variances and received them before, or trying to figure out a little history of the house.
Question if there's a variance required for the height of the roof.
No, one-story homes, basically one- and two-story homes, the maximum height limit in Boulder City is 25 feet, so it's well under that.
Okay, any other comments at this time?
I do have a lot of comments, sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
So, in keeping with what we are supposed to do in reviewing this, I developed this form to help keep my thoughts in mind as far as whether this addition meets the exterior guidelines as well as the Secretary of Interior standards. And did we give a copy to them? Okay, so feel free to read along. But when it comes to the guidelines, the existing exterior design guidelines, it does not meet the guideline standards for front yards. The guidelines state that there should be a continuous lawn with a walkway in the front yard. The new addition cuts off the visual continuity of the property's front lawn, as well as the continuity of the lawn that spans all three homes on that block facing Utah Street. I didn't see in the plans any kind of description of the route or type of access that's planned for the new front entry. So that was unclear to me. And if the new entry requires any kind of a walkway, where does that walkway go to? And will that walkway go to Utah Street? And therefore, will it cut into the historic rock wall that fronts that street? Or that property, or all of those properties actually along that road, or that block. Regarding the exterior wall finish, it doesn't comply with the guidelines there.
I'm just going to answer.
You can always put them on hold.
Hi, this is the Historic Preservation Committee.
Hi, this is the owner of 307 Utah Street.
Oh, yes. If you can just hold on, the committee is deliberating, and then we'll have an opportunity for you to speak. And if you could turn down the volume on the computer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Continuing with the exterior wall finish, they should only be using Rolock red brick or a historically compatible brick color and pattern with the new addition. As far as the roof type, I believe the roof height as depicted in the drawings is incompatible with the height of the existing, I'm not sure if it's height or pitch, or both, when compared to the existing historic property as well as all the two other homes that face Utah. I believe the roof should be at the same or a lower height than the historic home. And I have no other comments for the other patio covers. I wasn't sure when it came to the roof material or the rafters if the treatment was supposed to be compatible with the historic house or with the garage. That wasn't clear to me, but.
The guidelines are what they are. They were created by committee members, so.
No. I'm sure that meant the guidelines are supposed to be compatible with the historic district, but the plans that the owner provided just says to
I
match
see.
existing
Okay.
what?
Gotcha.
The windows are not compatible. I suggest the bedroom windows, which should comply with the guidelines. The bathroom windows could be fine, but perhaps they should consider some kind of a brick ghost or shadow treatment that replicates kind of the historic windows size and location just below the bathroom windows. The door and entry. So the property should maintain a single prominent entry, preferably the existing historic recessed entry with the decorative brick surround and the walkway to Utah Street. And this complies, or this kind of, or this does support my comments regarding the front yard. The guidelines should be followed for door type. The installation of the double French doors facing Utah Street will have a negative visual impact to the historic block as a whole. I would suggest eliminating the new entry altogether, perhaps using a window in that space, and perhaps then using French doors in the bedroom facing not Utah, but perpendicular to Utah. As for the porch, I don't have any comments about the side or rear addition porches or patios, but the new addition, including the front covered porch, is incompatible with the historic property as well as the other two homes facing Utah Street on the same block. The plans do not show what the porch floor height is. I can't tell if that's at ground level or if you have to get to it with steps. So that wasn't clear to me. And then I would like to mention that this and the other two historic homes on this block of Utah Street are some of the most prominent, historic, and visually important homes in Boulder City. 307 is especially an important home due to its proximity to the historic parks that are across the street, along with the Bureau of Rec building that's just next door. And the parks and that area of Boulder City is used a lot by members of the community, but thousands of people come to Boulder City and visit Boulder City, either passing through or when they attend some of our most popular outdoor events at those parks. So a lot of people see those homes and I think appreciate them. So another criteria that we're supposed to look at or address when it comes to determining whether a building or a preservation project is appropriate or not is using the Secretary of Interior standards. And so these that I wrote, these are the 10 standards for rehabilitation that are in the Secretary of Interior standards. And for the most part, the project is fine for all but 2 of the criteria. So if you go to criteria number 9A, will the exterior alterations or related new construction preserve historic materials, features, and spatial relationships that are characteristic to the property? It does not. This project does not meet that criteria. And I just reference the fact that the guidelines that were developed for Boulder City and for that property were not followed. And the same is true for 9B. Will exterior alterations be differentiated from the old, but still compatible with the historic materials, features, size, scale, and proportion, and massing to protect the integrity of the property and its environment? And again, the project does not meet that Secretary of Interior standards as outlined in my comments of findings of non-compliance with the exterior design guidelines. Sorry for all of those comments. But I think this is a super important property in Boulder City. I came across a really cool article about Sims Ely, who lived in that home. Sims Ely was one of the most important people in Boulder City in the founding of Boulder City. And in 1935, he delivered a speech over the NBC radio referring to Boulder City and the thousands of Hoover Dam workers who would soon be leaving their jobs there at the dam upon completion of the dam. He stated, quote, "Soon they'll be leaving what they will always remember Boulder City as a town of fine artistic planning and beautiful landscaping, a town of happy living conditions where the highest American ideas were fostered." In my opinion, this new addition to this important property is not compatible. Thank you.
Thank you, Blair, for your comments. Any other comments at this time?
So Blair pretty much covered most of everything that I don't like about the proposed changes to the home and the property. It is an incredibly important house in Boulder City. The most important person in Boulder City lived in that house at one time, and the neighboring homes and the lawn there are a very significant feature of the community. And I think that we would be setting yet another dangerous precedent when it comes to the loss of historic features in Boulder City. I would like to see the owners of historic homes focus more on preserving the integrity that the homes still have, and maybe even reversing some of them. This is a trend I think that we need to foster in Boulder City. This is a great example right here. These houses they're so prominent. Everybody that comes to town sees these homes, and I'm sure the homeowner means very well, and their intentions are very well-meaning, but I can't support the changes to the home. I don't like to see that lawn get interrupted, such as it is, and I can just see other homeowners on that street wanting to do similar things, and so we're setting a precedent here. So my message would be to the Planning Commission to not approve of the addition in the front, and to keep in mind that it's setting a dangerous precedent. And Boulder City at the moment is heavily focused on preservation and reversing some of the damaging trends that have been occurring over the last 40 years. And I think that's all I have to say on that. So thanks.
Okay, as you know, we are advisory, and I hope that the Planning Commission is listening to our comments. And if you've had time to read the Northwind report, you can see that we are not contributing as much historically as we have since 1983. Since 1983, we have had a lot of changes in the historic district. So I think we probably need to be careful about these changes and try to stay within the 10 guidelines. Let's see, was that SHPO that you were?
The Secretary of Interior standards are 10.
Yeah. The Secretary of Interior standards. Those have been put in place for a reason, and we don't want to stray too far away from those. Okay, any other comments at this time?
I've got more kind of just a little bit of questioning to help me out with it. You know, right now on the historic preservation guidelines, you know, it shows that the building is retrievable and that it's contributing. You know, if they were to make these changes, would it then take it out to a point where it's non-contributing to the historic district? Would it make that much difference? I'm new at this, so I'm just I need to
you're getting it.
Here.
Yeah.
So if they put this addition on, would it turn that home from contributing to non-contributing to the historic district? So in essence, we would lose a historic home.
Okay, maybe that's a question for staff.
Yes, the Northwind report states that, in their opinion, the property is already non-contributing based on prior changes that have already been made.
So it's already non-contributing.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Madam Chairwoman, we do have the applicant on the phone.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Okay, then we'll, if you'd like to tell us your comments at this time.
I just wanted to clarify that there will be no change to the grass or the front or the door. It's right now there's a gravel driveway, and that's where we're putting the addition. So it's not going to change the way the house looks from the front, mostly because the garage as it exists right now, we believe the garage was built in 1950. And so the addition is going to go on this gravelly driveway that's shielded by some scraggly, I forget what they call these, fir trees or something. So it doesn't at all change the grass whatsoever. And additionally, the French doors that are on the porch, we're going to replicate them so they look the same. Those windows leak at like a sieve every time it rains. And so we're pulling that out and virtually replicating that. So you wouldn't even be able to tell from the street that they were different. The front porch remains the same. The entryway from Utah remains the same. Our goal is to preserve everything that was built in 1931. We understand the significance of this house. I'm very good friends with the Risley family who owned it for 60 years. And so we certainly treasure the fact that this house is historic and has a huge story to tell. The only piece that we want to add, as I mentioned, is on that gravelly part, which is virtually driveway right now. In fact, we have our Honda Talon, and I welcome you guys to drive by, come inside, because where we're putting the bedroom is a gravel driveway. It's not on the grass.
Okay, do you have any other comments?
Also, I just wanted to make sure that those windows that everybody loved so much, that was an addition in the 1960s. And inside, they have a koi pond that looks like a baptismal. And the whole thing is a drop ceiling with very poor insulation. It's a difficult place and the windows are single pane. It's hot. It's an unusable space. And we just wanted to make it more livable, but still preserve we want to do nothing, absolutely nothing to change the look from the historic, especially the original house. We think that it had to be in the 1950s for the garage because the brick is matching. We do have some brick that they left in the rafters of the garage, and any brick that we can salvage, we're going to try to use that as the fascia to make sure everything looks historically correct. But like I said, the addition goes on a gravel driveway, not on the grass.
Can I ask a question?
Please do.
Hi there, this is Blair. I had a question about the new French doors. So where do the French doors, or where are you expecting people to enter the home? The existing front entrance or the new bigger French door under the porch? Are you there?
Did she hear us?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Could you hear the question?
Didn't hear the question. Go ahead, ask the question again.
Hi there. So I'm curious what the purpose of the French doors are and where you are.
They're actually going to fold back. They're going to look. It's going to be. You know how you have glass doors that accordion? They're going to be accordion doors. They look like French doors there, but they're going to be accordion doors, right? To match the glass that it looks like right now. So right now, if you were to come by, it's like these 4-inch kind of wood, and then there's a single pane glass in between. We're going to do our best to replicate that look of the glass front that they did in the 1960s, but to modernize it and make it double pane glass and also with some, because in the afternoon, that room in there is scorching hot, and we absolutely need to have, and that window actually doesn't just go vertical, it has a diagonal component to it, and we really just want to make it where we don't have so much sun coming through that, and double pane that. The reason we're pulling the porch out a little bit is so we have access from the main house into the master bedroom. We have 2 little kids, a boy and a girl, and only 2 bedrooms on the top floor. So we really need to have a 3rd bedroom, and they're 5 and 4. But so that's kind of what's motivating the renovation. But the Risley grandkids still come by our house all the time, and we really, they really feel like this is their home because they grew up in it, and we certainly don't want to change anything. We just want to add that little piece on that gravel driveway.
So will there be a pathway or a walkway to that new front door, or that new?
What's that?
Will there be a pathway or walkway to that new door?
No, we're not gonna. We were preserving the cobbles. They poured those little cement. We're not changing or making a new entrance whatsoever. The main door stays the main door. We just like the idea when we love the festivals. We'd like to open our doors so that we can bring the outdoors in, and our kids can play in the grass. That's the only reason we want a door there, and it's not going to be a pathway to the front whatsoever. That's not going to change we would have to change the wall to do that, and excavate that. No, we're keeping the front exactly the same. There won't be any change in the grass whatsoever.
So I have a second question. Do you know why the roof is so high?
So the roof, because that weird section where the baptismal koi pond, and because so that those glass doors where you see those French doors, that they put a flat roof there, and you might want to talk to Jason, but they said it was easier to make everything look more continuous in terms of the we're going to match the roofing tile. We want to make everything look as though from the street, from Utah, as though that roof has always been there. And you probably have to ask Jason why they don't even want to go up that much farther than it's maybe less than a foot, but they want to make it look as continuous as possible. But I guess because of the size of the beams and stuff, there's going to be a little bit more of a height variance, but not much. Our goal is to take the new roof and span the existing garage and the addition, which is on that gravel driveway, and make it look like it was always there. We don't want it to look different. And we have to capture that flat roof leaks. Every single bit of that flat roof leaks because I don't know what, they put some plastic kind of, I don't know what it is, but it's not tiled. It's where the air conditioners sit, and we're going to take the air conditioners down and put them in the backyard, so aesthetically it'll be prettier, not only from the back, but from our neighbors that overlook the park. But it'll be, yeah, you can see the air conditioners from the street, but we're going to put those down and make that roof look really pretty from the front and the back.
Would you consider not using wood siding on the front?
We would consider it. I mean, right now, if you were to come over and look at the garage, the wood that's facing Utah, unfortunately, you can't really see it from the pictures that they took. But there's wood siding on that garage now that was built in the 1950s. So we're just trying, would be happy not to, but matching the brick could be, we're kind of like, okay, we're going to try our best to match the brick. But at the same time, we're also, what would you suggest? I mean, I think that there's an opportunity here to replicate what that side looks like from the garage right now, which would include wood siding, because that's how they built it in the 50s. or we could try our best to do a matching job with the brick. But if you come over to the house now, and you're welcome to come over and check it out, there's wood siding on that garage today.
I see where you're going as far as you're trying to, it sounds like, honor the style of the 1950s editions.
What's that?
It sounds like you're trying to honor the style and design of the 1950s or 60s editions of the garage.
We are. We're trying, our goal is to make that addition, that wall that faces Utah to look as much like the existing garage does today. And keep in mind, that's most of that addition lands straight on top of gravel. It's not on the grass. And the reason you don't ever see our garage is because of those trees there, but we still want to replicate what's there. And I appreciate your comments of, I mean, the windows here are beautiful, the way the brick kind of juts out. We'd like to replicate that too. We want to make, and I know when Jason says to match, that's what we're talking about. Our passion is to match as much as we can. They are even taking it to the extent that the beautiful, the eaves that are carved, they're going to replicate that on the back patio all the way around. So we want to match as much of the historic architecture and the beautiful kind of details that this house has and bring it. But for us, we need to make our house livable for us. And we're not, if you drive by, you'll see that the place where this addition is going is gravel. We have our ATV parked there right now. It's not on the grass. Yeah. And we're going to keep those trees there. We love our trees because this house faces the sun and it gets hot. So we want to keep it the way it is. The front yard, we love it. We love that one walkway, same original doorway. I mean, we might put a different, security door that complements it because this one's broken, finally fell apart. We can't. But other than that, we don't have any plans to do anything with the front door. So, and that security door was here when I bought it. So it just needs to be. It's falling off its hinges.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? And we thank you for all of your comments, the owner. Okay, so I guess we'll move on then, as long as everybody feels comfortable about the discussion. Okay. All right, for possible action, review and recommendation on proposed additions at 413 Utah Street relative to the adopted exterior design guideline for that area.
Okay, thank you very much.
Madam Chairman, this request is basically for 2 patio covers. One will be on the side of the home, and it will be closer to the house than the street, although the report notes that because of the existing grade of the house being so much higher than the street and a whole bunch of vegetation out front, the part that will extend closer to the side property line may or may not necessarily be visible. And then there will be also a proposed patio cover attached to the detached garage in the rear yard. And the applicant had been out of town but submitted a form. They filled out the form for the accessory building information, but it was still somewhat incomplete. The plans basically are from one of those aluminum patio cover companies. Typically, the products I'm familiar with, if you get up real close, they're meant to look like wood, but from a distance, you probably won't be able to tell what materials the patio covers are made of anyway.
Okay. Are there any comments on these additions?
Madam Chairwoman,
Yes.
we also can call the applicant as well, and then you can ask any questions of the applicant.
Okay. Would it be your pleasure to call the applicant at this time?
I don't have any questions for the applicant.
Okay, all right, I guess we don't need to, if that's okay. In essence of time. Okay, then we'll move on. Yes,
The staff ends up completing that report in the, that you've got in the file, although what we'll bring back for you next month is Blair's proposal to expand on that so that you can have better tools to evaluate this. But does the committee have any recommendations regarding these patio covers or any comments relative to the Secretary of Interior standards?
okay, you heard that. Does the committee have any other comments?
Mike, there was one comment I had a question, but it was clarified with the new information that you gave as far as color. So that's fine, and height, I think.
The contractor didn't specify the height. I believe the specs usually state that patio covers shall not exceed 12 feet in height, but the contractors typically don't tell us how tall it's actually going to be.
Okay. Again, using the form that I came up with, just so that my brain could see what's going on. Regarding the Secretary of Interior standards, again, it was number 9A and 9B that apply to this project. But in this case, this home has absolutely no historic integrity. There's no historical value to this home, at least from the street. Therefore, the addition of these patio covers is pretty minimal, and I don't think impacts the property. Not only just the property, but the street as well, or the other homes that are in the vicinity. So those were my comments when using the Secretary of Interior standards.
Okay, Mr. Mays, do you think we should call the applicant, or do you think it's necessary?
That's up to you. I guess typically to allow the applicant if they have any comments, but it's at your discretion.
Okay, I think it looks like it's going to, oh, did you have something?
I've just got a quick question. Again, I haven't had a chance to go through all this stuff as much as you guys have.
Yeah.
But all right, according to Vice Chair Blair, that building doesn't have any historical significance anymore. It's not contributing any longer. And my only question then would be do these patio covers that they're looking, they're just shade, do they fall into the normal city code guidelines for setbacks, et cetera? I mean, they require variances from the planning commission to build them, or they just fall within the criteria of putting up a shade?
It doesn't require any planning commission approval. It meets zoning code. It's just the only reason it's before the committee is because it doesn't meet certain standards of the adopted guidelines.
So there are plans to put these patios up to take them to the permit, building permit, and it's a rubber stamp type item, basically, in a manner of speaking.
In a manner of speaking, the contractor, they're still struggling to get the site plan and information right, but once they do, it'll be approved.
Yeah, it's just a formality, so it doesn't affect the historic. I don't have any questions for the homeowner then.
Not in my opinion.
Okay, then I think we'll just move on then in essence of time. Okay, for possible action, intent to take corrective action for an alleged open meeting law violation which occurred on August 28th, 2020. Okay, are there any comments at this time?
Yes, Madam Chairwoman. The committee had asked for guidance from staff regarding the ability to be able to discuss activities related to historic preservation day and then eventually the month activities. And based on the direction we provided the committee met on August 28th to discuss those activities, and I'm taking responsibility that was in error and a misinterpretation of what is allowed by open meeting law. You can come together and have the event, and that doesn't violate open meeting law, but planning for the event does. And so to correct that, we agendize it as we've done, and the items that were discussed at that lunch are included in the packet as your next agenda item. And so that addresses that issue. And so for future planning of the historic preservation events, up to 2 members can meet and discuss activities, provided that there isn't discussions with other committee members. So, for example, at each of the committee meetings, if you assign responsibilities and say that 2 of the members are going to work on these action items, after that meeting, those 2 members can meet and discuss those action items as long as they don't communicate to any other committee member, which would be considered serial communication, and that you would report back at a subsequent meeting and provide updates to the others. And so that complies with open meeting law.
Okay, is that clear to everyone now? What is actually allowed under the open meeting law? So 2 members can discuss and then report back. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Can I just say thank you for taking responsibility for that error and also explaining, clarifying what we can and can't do. I really appreciate that. And it was not our intent to go against the open meeting law.
Absolutely, and we apologize for the error.
Thank you, Michael.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Michael.
Okay. Moving on then. For possible action, discussion regarding activities for the historic preservation event for 2020. And at this time, I would like to thank Blair for her development of the task guidelines. Okay, any comments about what's happening? Looks like we have some work to do. Okay.
Well, I just would like to
Yeah,
say,
go ahead, Ray.
so with the unfortunate resignation of Linda Schrick, that means that we no longer have an interviewer for the programming, but at this point, I'm willing to take on that role if necessary. I did send a message to Blair. I hadn't heard back yet on that, but if Blair would be interested in possibly being the interviewer, that would be greatly appreciated. But in the event that she is not comfortable with that, I am certainly comfortable with interviewing the recipient of the award on camera. And I don't foresee that being a problem. I will also be filming at the same time, but that's no problem. I have it set up and I can edit and do what's necessary, but it would be a lot easier on me if I had an interviewer, and I thought Blair would be excellent for that. And so Blair, what do you say?
Talk about on the spot. I'll do the first interview and we'll see how it goes, right? And then the other 3, we'll take it from there. Is that okay?
That's excellent. I appreciate it.
Okay, we do have 2 scripts that Linda has submitted, so we do have a script for 2.
Oh,
and that's
I didn't know that.
That's for, let's see, let me look here.
I'm sorry, do you have that in writing?
I do, but I'm not picking it up until Friday.
Okay.
Yeah, she's giving us the scripts. So that's for the
helpful.
Denver home. Yeah, the Denver home has been scripted, and there's a company store. Yeah, so that's going to save a lot of work. So you can use those, because that was like based on a pre-interview. Okay. But I don't know, has Nathaniel Key been contacted at the Bureau? I know that
Yes,
Linda
I
had a hard time.
contacted Nathaniel a couple of weeks ago, and Nathaniel said that he would talk to some people at the Bureau and see who might be the most appropriate person to work with us on that. He did say that he would be contacting Linda Schrick to talk about that, but I didn't hear anything. I haven't heard a word from Linda.
I spoke with Linda. After she resigned, she called me, and she had tried to contact them, but they didn't call her back, and she had trouble with the Ash Street group there. So the only 2 pre-interviews and script that she has are the ones I just mentioned. So that's going to have to be worked on, the other 2. Will you have time? Because that's coming up pretty quick.
Did she say what the trouble was?
They just never got back to her. They never got back to her.
Well, I've already had 2 meetings with them. And
Yeah, I don't know why.
I've spent about 4 hours with those people already, and they've been wonderful, very cooperative, very supportive. So I don't understand.
I don't either, but that's what I was told, and she only had 2 scripts, so.
Okay.
So we're.
Well, I just don't want anyone
2.
to get the wrong impression, because they've been absolutely wonderful, and I've done a bunch of filming over there already, and
Okay.
you know,
Will it
off
be
the
hard
cuff
for you?
interviewing.
Will it be hard for you to write the scripts?
None at all.
Based on your.
Well, I'd like to see what Linda has come up with. And,
Okay, I'm
and
picking that up on Friday morning.
use as much of that as we can. And also, I would like to know what other committee members, if they have any specific questions they would like us to ask the different nominees and the recipient. If you have anything you'd like to submit, please share it with me. I'd love to hear from you on that. Otherwise, yes, I'd like to review Linda's script, and coming up with a script is no problem.
Okay, so some of the.
Excuse me,
Go ahead,
if I
Susan.
could just ask for clarification maybe for Michael. In terms of the draft scripts, do those need to come to the city first and then we would distribute them to members rather than have members passing them back between each other? Because also, of course, in the end, and there's no accounting for once the live event actually happens, but obviously our communications director would want to see what kind of draft script questions
Sure.
you've got, which I'm sure are basically all oriented historic preservation, but I believe that was the protocol that was discussed previously when they were talking about the Facebook Live events.
Well, I think the office is closed here on Friday morning, right? Is the office here open?
No, but
Is there a way I could drop it off here Friday, once I pick it up?
yeah, or could you bring it by Monday?
Yeah.
I mean, if you didn't feel comfortable scanning and emailing them to us, if you'd rather
Yeah.
drop them off.
I'll just drop them off to you on Monday then.
That'd be fine.
Okay, all right, good. And then I know we're kind of on a short time schedule, so what do you perceive now being all this done?
I'm a little concerned about the script. I mean, we're going to just ask her some questions about the house, and I mean, there are these things we have to get pre-approved to ask people questions in an interview. It's not a script. It's just a guideline as to what type of questions we might want to ask. But it's probably going to be more of a conversational interview, and it's not really scripted. I mean, we're calling it a script, but it's really just ideas for questions.
I think the question here is the distribution of the script among the committee members from committee members. So if you're asking for the committee to provide input, then that gets back into the open meeting law concerns.
Okay.
I think if you can set this up where, again, you have 2 people and they're given responsibilities for all the actions related to that aspect of the event, they can share, communicate, develop, plan, and only if you need to get input from the rest of the committee, then it has to come back to a meeting.
Okay.
So
well,
can I
what
suggest
about-
that you just drop it, can she just drop it off with Ray, and then Ray and I are the ones that are going to work on it, and simultaneously give you guys a copy, and then, because you want to approve it, right?
Well,
I think it's probably better if I drop it off to Susan on Monday, and then the two of you just pick it up from her, and then the two of you work on it, and we, because we're on such a short timeline.
My concern is time, and
Why wait till Monday?
do you already have the list?
The list, what do you mean?
The script? Or,
No, I'm picking it up on Friday morning.
Then I suggest that Blair pick it up instead,
Yeah, why?
No, she
and
doesn't
then-
want to hear me.
that rules it out.
She doesn't want to.
She doesn't want to hear from me either.
Okay, all right. I'll pick it up on Friday like I had planned. She left me a message, I called her back. So, and then I'll give it to Susan on Monday, and then the two of you just,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I thought I heard him suggest that you give it directly to Blair?
well, I can if it's okay.
As long as there's not more than two of you involved.
So the two people will be Ray and I.
Yeah,
Just the deliverer.
right.
I'm,
Yeah,
Well, it might be a good idea for you to have a copy of the
I
script.
think I
anyway.
might have a solution. Okay,
Okay.
so Linda has resigned,
Yeah,
and I'm sorry, but I don't think we need a script from Linda to proceed
Okay.
with this. So I think Blair and I can easily come up with a list of simple questions about possible that come up at the interview. No disrespect to Linda, I know she spent a lot of time meeting with these people, but she has resigned, and so
Yeah.
things
Now
are
we have
getting a
to go
little
forward.
complicated now, and we do
Yeah.
have a deadline. I am trying to. I haven't heard back from the recipient yet, but I do have a tentative date for the 3rd or 4th of October for the interview. So waiting until Monday possibly for, it's just a time issue. So I think Blair and I can handle it. So if you guys are okay with that, I propose that we make that decision tonight.
That works for me. Now, the other, I don't know if we got to that part yet, but when it comes to the award recipient, it's not just you and me interviewing that person, but you and the mayor presenting the award.
yeah, I saw that on the
Right.
task, yeah. Okay, all right, well, that simplifies it, then we won't need the script. You guys will just go forward together, and then is there a way that the time can be communicated to us when they officially do the interviews? Like, are they allowed to email us, like, telling us that the interviews are going to be on such and such a day? Is that allowed? So we know what's going on.
I think with we'll call them subcommittees, people working on certain aspects of this, if you could forward the information to Susan and I, and then
Okay.
we
And then
we can make sure that we update the committee on the dates and times of the activities.
That would be very good. Okay. All right. I guess we're all straight then. The two of you will work on that, Blair and Ray, and you'll get that information to Michael and Susan, and they will then tell us when that's all being done. Okay, is everybody clear?
Well, I had questions about, is this meet the city's schedule?
Okay, go ahead.
So there are some tasks that the city is responsible for. I was just curious if this works.
Well, I saw on the email, I did see the information that's being sent out in the utility mailer.
And that looks fine to me.
Yeah, so we would be sending out to the community in the October utility mailer the information promoting Historic Preservation Month. In addition to that, and we've already updated the website to indicate that, the videos are going to be forthcoming. And so as those are produced and sent to us, we will create links at the website so that what people are receiving in October in their utility mailer is the links to the website so they can go and check. And we're encouraging them to, check often to find out when new videos have been posted.
Okay.
So my question about that information in the flyer, were you planning to distribute them out in the public, non-digitally, old-fashioned?
Like to the newspaper?
Yeah, that was one of my questions for posting, and I don't know if that was, are you just posting this information digitally? And if that's true, that's fine. I just want to know, because we've sometimes been given those handouts or notices and posted them at Starbucks or whatever, or they've been sent to the Chamber of Commerce, but I don't know what the city's plans are for sending this out.
Well, the information will go to every household in the flyer with a utility mailer. And are you referring to when the videos are posted, then informing people of those?
My question is, were you planning to print more than just what was going into the mailers so that you would post them in building locations or give them to other businesses for posting?
We can certainly print some that can be distributed.
And then also, were you going to do any kind of a press release or news release to the paper or chamber? Again, this is based on what we did last time.
Yeah,
so.
there would be a press release.
Okay.
Yeah, that's under task 2, coordinate outreach and publicity.
I know it's all on here, but I
Yeah,
haven't
right.
talked to them
No,
to
I
find
know.
out if this is
Yeah, you're right.
valid. So, okay, I think that was all my questions. Yep, that's it.
So with regard to flyers, I certainly would be interested in having some flyers to distribute around town and put up in various places. I've done it so often. I know a lot of, and I encourage us all, committee members, to consider that, because we all know different places where we might put it up. So I would suggest we all take some. I would probably be good for about 30, 40 flyers personally. Just
I could probably take about 20, just in my normal everyday type. So the actual day then that we're going to be on the website and ready is October 3rd? Or that's when you're going to do the interviews? So when is the actual day that we're going to be linked up for the virtual tour?
We didn't say a particular day.
Oh, okay.
We just kind of said during the month of October.
Okay.
And I think
Okay.
what we were hoping that when a video is ready to be posted, that there'd be some announcement maybe on the city's webpage.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. We can highlight those
Yeah, it's just
through
like a-
social media and say
yeah.
the next one has been produced. And Member Davenport, you had also indicated that maybe this may lead into November. And so we've tried to change the verbiage so it will be coming out over the coming weeks instead of just October.
That sounds perfect.
Okay. So when would those flyers be ready for us to pick up? Can we pick them up at City Hall? The flyers?
We can print that flyer and have it ready for Monday.
Really? Okay. Is that good with everybody? All right.
So did we set up a time to actually interview with the mayor and Linda?
good question. So you mean Hillary?
Well, there's Hillary, Linda, and the mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. That confused
Yeah,
a
the
lot of time.
But it's Hillary, the
so-
award recipient.
I haven't had confirmation yet from Hillary, but I have asked her if she has a preference between the 3rd and the 4th. The 4th is my preference because it's a Sunday and it'll be very quiet in the morning, and that's when we intend to do it, is in the morning. So I anticipate that the interview itself will begin approximately 8 a.m. And then I would want yourself and the mayor to show up at about 9 a.m. And of course, we'll confirm all this later. But tentatively, that's the plan I have in mind, is an hour for me to do interview work, and then to have you and the mayor show up and make the presentation after the interview has taken place.
It was my understanding that she didn't, the awardee does not want us in her home, is that correct?
No, we decided to feature the exterior
Okay.
of the building.
Okay.
And I have already been over there and taken quite a bit of video footage of
Okay.
the exterior, all around the whole back sides, everything. And then the interview will take place outside in the front yard, in front of the house.
Okay. All right. Could you leave me a phone message when you actually determine that day, so I'll make sure that I'm there. Okay.
And I would suggest that
Yes.
if you have a need for something during that presentation, whether that's seating or water or something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
might need a chair.
Okay.
Yeah.
And same with the mayor, see if he has a need. I don't know what, but is that up to?
I have already asked the recipient if she can provide table and chairs and water, glasses and water and stuff, so.
Okay. So can we ask the mayor and talk to him about his schedule, or do we have to go through?
No, you can
Okay.
contact him. Yeah.
He doesn't have a handler?
And I have already contacted him about the possibly next weekend. Again, I haven't heard back from him either, but
Okay.
I only contacted them both today.
Okay, perfect. All right, perfect.
Okay, so I see that the award has already been done, and thank you, Blair, for your work on that. Is there anything else that we need to discuss of things that need to be done?
And just so I can confirm, because obviously I haven't printed up the formal certificate yet, plus I didn't know who was going to be elected as chairman, so we'll have to print it on the pretty paperwork. Is everybody okay with the language as Blair's provided it? Okay.
Okay, any other comments concerning Historic Preservation Day? Or week, or event, I guess it's called event, virtual event. Did we ever come up with a name?
It's in the city manager's.
Virtual Historic Preservation Month.
Okay,
In
that's what
October.
we came up with. Okay, okay. I know we discussed that. All right, very good. Any other comments?
I'd just like to say I really like the city manager's press release on this, so appreciate that very much.
Okay, very good. Well, we're well on our way to Historic Preservation Month. Thank you so much for all of your work, Ray and Blair. You've done a yeoman's job, and we thank you for picking up the pieces and moving on. Okay, we'll move on to number 7, possible action, update on implementation of the committee's goals and priorities.
So, Madam Chairwoman, this is the monthly update on the historic preservation goals. You will note in the attachment the matrix which shows all the goals, and in bold highlighting new information. So one of the things that we're working on with objective number 2, Nevada Preservation Foundation is taking public comment. The video that they have developed has been posted to YouTube, and this ties back to the utility mailer from this month that went to all households, encouraging people to watch the video and to contact the Nevada Preservation Foundation so that they can provide their input in the historic preservation plan that the Nevada Preservation Foundation is working on. In addition to that, you'll see updates regarding follow-up from last month's direction from the Historic Preservation Committee. The recommendations were presented to the City Council last night, and the City Council directed to proceed with the creation of an ad hoc committee. We will be going back to the council with a resolution developing that ad hoc committee to look at the historic preservation codes with the Historic Preservation Committee. And so after the City Council approves that resolution, then we'll develop creation of that ad hoc committee and scheduling for that once we coordinate with this committee and the council members that are appointed to that. In addition to that, the City Council directed staff to include in the next year's CIP budget monies for the historic water filtration plant. And so you'll see over the next several months, as the City Council evaluates the next fiscal year budget, they will be looking at those monies so that the city can take advantage of next year's potential grant through the state for a portion of those improvements.
Okay, I think that's very exciting, this grant process. And I want to thank Blair for spearheading that and making sure that this gets into the budget. And we're working towards that. And did you have something to say, Blair?
I do. I have a question about the Nevada Preservation Foundation. I emailed them with my preference, and I got a response that said thank you, and to go look at the flyer to figure out how to watch the video, which I did. Mm-hmm. But that's it. I guess what I was wondering is, I preferred the online survey. So, do you know anything about when the online survey is available, or what the questions are in the online survey, or?
So
very confused.
Okay. The Nevada Preservation Foundation is asking each resident to contact them to let them know the preference and how they would engage them with feedback. Either it would be through mail, phone call conversation, and or email. I have not received the questions that they are asking them, but I can certainly ask them for those questions and distribute them to the committee.
That would be good. I have another question too. I guess for some reason, could you elaborate on the Nevada Preservation Foundation, like what it actually is, and tell us a little bit about it?
The Nevada Preservation Foundation, we had presented to the committee earlier this year. They presented to you a little bit of their background. They're a nonprofit organization that promotes historic.
I missed that meeting. That's why I'm confused.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
they nonprofit that promotes historic preservation efforts within Nevada, and so they were hired to lead the community in developing a historic preservation plan. And so we had the kickoff meeting in March. Unfortunately, COVID happened. And so their efforts were put on hold. Not knowing when we're going to get back to a new normal, they had proposed this virtual outreach to the community to be able to get additional input from our citizens so that they could complete the draft historic preservation plan so that it can be presented to this committee and to the City Council.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions on our committee goals?
I was just wondering, is there any way that we as committee members can have access to the responses so that we can study them also? I just wonder how is the information being gathered and stored and tallied and stuff like that. I think it's important for us to, I mean, so far we haven't been involved in this in any way. I find that a little unsettling to be so out of the loop when it comes to questions that are going to be asked. So, I mean, these are things that are already determined. I'm a little bit surprised that we haven't already received that information from them to let us know what's coming. And so I'm also, like I said, I would also like to be able to have the opportunity to look at the responses myself as well. So whether that's on a, I don't know, in a file somehow, or, something like that.
Typically, when consultants prepare plans that seek community input, they include as an appendix all of the responses, either in summary form or the information collected and tabulated. I would fully expect that that will be included as part of their draft report to the committee when presented to you, ideally before the end of this year. And again, as it relates to the questions they'll be asking, I will ask them if they can provide those to us so I can share that with the committee.
Great, thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. Any other comments? Okay, then we'll move on to number 7. For possible action, update on implementation of the committee's goals and priorities.
That's what we just covered.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't check it off. Okay. Okay, for possible action, discussion regarding the process for nominating resources for inclusion in the Boulder City Historic Registry, as requested by Member Davenport. And I would like to compliment Blair on her work. It was very thorough, and I'm amazed at her knowledge and being able to use the constructive criticism and update. Could you comment, Blair?
I think my question was answered, whether there was some type of a form for nominating a property, and there isn't. And so I think it's incumbent upon the committee to come up with a form that makes it easy, perhaps, or makes it possible for citizens to potentially nominate historic properties to the local register. And I mean, do you guys think that that's a valid endeavor that we should do? I mean, it's one way also to instill, pride in the history of the city. You're giving people the opportunity to look at their properties and, go through a form that kind of ticks off where their home may be important or historically significant, and maybe not their home, but it could be any property in the city. So anyway, it's just one of the tasks for our committee is to designate historic resources. There just currently isn't, it doesn't seem like there's a process for doing that. And I guess we just need to come up with a process. And I'm guessing that the Nevada Preservation Foundation in their historic preservation plan will probably address this. Be awesome if they came up with a format. But there's plenty of forms out there in the country to use for nominating properties at the local level. In fact, I think there's one, SHPO might have one.
If I could ask a question, just so staff could understand where you're coming from. It seems to me there might be a difference between having such a process now and having one after you've got a historic preservation plan in place, because it seems like if you want a form now for people to nominate things, I guess the thing that would have to be made clear to those applying would be that it's based on the current code, which is non-regulatory. And I would imagine in most communities where they have that process for public nominations, they do have a regulatory code, so people know that, okay, I'm nominating myself to be as part of this particular historic neighborhood. And I believe in most other communities, they might, like in Las Vegas, they've got different historic neighborhoods and areas, each with their own criteria and set of standards. And I guess, is it your intent that the purpose of this would be, so people would be adding something to the local historic district under the current code, and then automatically they would be folded in later if the code is changed? Or is it your intent that these new nominations, which wouldn't be part of the federal district, that they would be like separate neighborhood categories, like for your mid-century moderns, or for instance, the committee proposed one for, the old historic airport hangar? Is it the idea that they would be something different than the national listing in terms of criteria, or is it the idea that you think that the local registry based on the dam criteria should be bigger and encourage people in those areas to apply per the current code?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so historic properties can be nominated to local, state, and national registers. There's already a national register form that people can use. And so when it comes to historic properties that are in the current historic district, I would suggest people use the national register form. So for instance, it was recommended, let's say the historic water plant or someone's home, there's a bunch of homes that were determined that they could be individually listed. So perhaps that homeowner has the skill and wherewithal and gumption to fill out a national register form for their home. And that process would then go, they don't even have to go before us, but you would hope that, we would weigh in, and then they could send that off to the SHPO and the National Park Service to get that on the National Register.
Okay, so that would be for all the ones that Northwind identified as individually eligible for listing?
That could be any property either within the current historic district, but perhaps the hangar is also nationally significant. So a National Register form could also be done for that property. But for the local register, there is no form. So I was just curious if there is a form for filling that out. And it doesn't, in my opinion, matter whether the property or whether our code is regulatory or not. Because we have properties on the National Register that we're, commenting on that, are not from a regulatory standpoint. So to me, it doesn't matter whether it's if our code is regulatory or not.
Sure,
It's
that's
just
fine.
a process of, so the other part of why you would use a form, or we would need to come up with some criteria though, as far as what that form is actually nominating, and that's a great point you bring up about neighborhoods. Perhaps we come up with a form where we identify kind of a neighborhood, and then we identify what the character defining features of that neighborhood are, and that form would, I guess, highlight that if it's mid-century modern, then the roofs are, look like this, or the windows look like this, and but that actually that's another project that we can't necessarily do. And that's what Susan Mooney, I think she suggested. We need to come up with kind of a historic context for these other neighborhoods or these other historic resources. And that then gives you what your criteria are for nomination.
So is your idea that there would be one generic form? And of course, forms can change over time, but is the idea there'd be one generic form? Or do you foresee like having different forms for different categories or nominations?
No, it's normally one form for nominating a property, just like the National Register. And then the National Register relies on other information and research to fill in the blanks on that form. And that other information is, archival research, photographs, historic context, and then evaluation of condition and, criteria or character defining features and that kind of thing, which we don't have yet
Right.
for those other neighborhoods in this community. But so I think we're getting a little ahead, but I just wanted to know if we even had a form or if that had been discussed maybe previously with the previous code. Did they come up with a form back then? I don't know. I was just curious.
Yeah, well, the original code, there was never a committee appointed, so there was never any discussion regarding
Okay.
that. And up until this committee wanted to have the old airport hangar as a separate district. That's been the one and only time there's ever been any committee discussion about having any property be, listed locally or beyond that wasn't already in the district, so it just hasn't come up. Mhm. And so, obviously, we can, go to Las Vegas or the SHPO and ask them for sample forms, but my guess is you might also have more direct contacts, or if you're familiar with forms that you like and have been used elsewhere, you're welcome to provide them to us, and we can present that back to the committee.
Yeah, that's something I can definitely work on. And it's not something to do right now, ASAP. It was just
Okay.
a question. Because Susan brought up, or not Susan, Courtney brought up, and it's been brought up also with other folks that, it's important to have your local register established.
Right.
And so we have, it's kind of started, but it's just kind of there, but there isn't any push to kind of add to it or refine it. And so I think the historic preservation plan that's coming up is going to help a lot with that. And we'll just keep that in the back of our minds, that that's part of the process of.
Absolutely, and I also recall from one of the several SHPO visits we've had in the past that their preference actually is not that a community's local registry be an exact match to what's on the federal register. I'm trying to remember the exact reasoning for that, but their actual preference is that there be somewhat of a difference.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
Oh, okay, so you're going to work on getting some sample forms then?
Yeah.
At some point, yeah, at some point. Okay, very good, very good. All right, then we'll move on. For possible action, discussion on proposal for an ongoing series of articles in local publications regarding Boulder City history as requested by Member Schrick. And as you all know, Member Schrick has resigned, so I guess we'll just let this go. If she wants to do that on her own, I guess that would be something that she would pick up. Any other comments on that?
Well, I thought it would be a great thing for the committee to do that. And so my opinion is we should move ahead with that. And I think we could reach out to some local authors, maybe historian types, Dennis McBride. I know there's other people out there that write historic stuff, and invite some guest articles on behalf of the committee from those people, and then possibly as well as put out some informative educational stuff as well. Like maybe one, we might have an interesting historical story from the past, and then maybe we might have an informational, educational article in the news. But I think it would be great for the committee to have such an outreach to the community like that.
Okay,
So I'd like to see us continue to work on that if possible.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Madam Chairman, if I
yes.
could just bring up one point for the committee to consider. Members on their own can partner with other groups, because one thing, as the code is currently written, the focus is on physical historic resources. And so by all means, promoting historic preservation in that vein or realm is certainly related to the scope per the code. what I believe, former member Schrick had in mind was more general history, such as like what happened 50 years ago this week, which is general history, not necessarily related to physical buildings or physical historic resources in Boulder City. So I guess you might want to keep that in mind in terms of what you have, so that you're not actually going beyond the scope of what the committee is tasked with per the code, unless the code is changed. If this committee wants to go beyond historic preservation with regard to physical features, and you want to get involved in, say, the promotion of history of Boulder City, and I know that was very important in some aspects with regard to former member Goya's opinions about important people in the past. And obviously important people relate to buildings, just as was mentioned earlier tonight in terms of Sims Ely, having been the resident of one of the homes discussed tonight. But you just might want to keep that in mind, in terms of keeping it tailored to what the committee's scope is, unless that scope is changed, if the code is changed in the future. Either that, or a member participates on their own with, say, the museum, which is, the main private organization in town devoted to promoting the city's history. Their focus is not historic resources, physical buildings, like the committee's is. So there's definitely an opportunity for cooperation there, if that's the direction you want to go, but you just want to keep in mind the committee's parameters.
Well, would you like to put this on the agenda next month and then talk about it some more, about how we might proceed? Okay, then why don't all of us keep in mind what Susan said and think about maybe some committee members could write an article now and then. I don't know, but think about it. Think about some ideas, that you might have, and then we'll put it on the agenda for next month and we'll discuss it some more. Okay? Any other comments? Okay, then we will move on. For possible action, discussion and update on the status of properties in the historic district. Any comments? Okay. Number 11, for possible action, committee discussion regarding potential agenda items for upcoming Historic Preservation Committee meetings. Okay, then we've decided to go ahead and talk about the articles. Do you have something, Glenn?
Well, maybe next month,
You got to think about it.
formulate my brain a little bit, and probably at this time, it was probably a little scary.
Yeah. Okay.
Formulate it a little bit better.
All right. Well, good. We're glad you're here, and you'll probably have something next month to contribute. All right. Then we'll move on to public comment. Any other public comment? Do I have to tell that? Okay, number again. Okay, the number. Oh, that's right. 702-589-9629. If you would have a public comment, we'll allow for 5 minutes. So we'll just wait here for 5 minutes in case there's any public comment. Okay, we have 4 more minutes on public comment. Kind of quiet tonight. Yeah, that's probably the difference.
Madam Chair, you're not required to wait a full 5 minutes.
Okay. All right. So since we do not have any public comment, I just want to say thank you to Michael and Susan Danielitz for their participation, and we always appreciate all of your professional help. Thank you so much. All right. With that, we'll close the meeting. You're welcome. Oh, thanks.